Can one achieve freedom from reaction? From reaction. Nor by renunciation alone can one to go to private schools where they don't have good sports, or go the sport route and not get that good of an education. So like a fool I didn't have that big of a body. Back then it was big in comparison to others though. And so I chose the sport route. And then I smashed my foot so bad when I was 15 or 16. And it still hurts today, and definitely sports career is finished. And I'm already 16, and I didn't go the other route to make it into these super good schools. So I don't know, some reason I was upset. I just went, all right, well now how do I max out the enjoyment? Or the whatever, the success in life, what I perceived as the success in life, what I perceived as the success in life back then, with no Bhagavad Gita learning in America, none of that back then, for me at least. So I thought, okay, no problem. This is actually a good thing. I recognize it as a good thing, because now my way of developing real success by not being dependent on external things. So I thought, okay, it's about a state of consciousness. If I can have a state of consciousness where I'm happy, not being dependent on external factors, like I'm happy because I hit a home run, or I made it through MIT and now I got a 6-figure income, now I'm happy. No, I would be happy always, how about? So I started to try to figure out how to do that. So I became basically a jnani. I recognized, and then you know, at 16, expected to get a job or whatever. Fend for yourself. And I thought, I just kind of glanced at the situation, and if all material action leads to suffering, getting a job and getting caught up in all that, family, all that stuff, that just, obviously these people aren't happy, and it's not going to make me happy. It's a lot of work. And so I thought, let me just sit here and not move. And I'll just pass stool right here, and and my parents would kick me out probably in a couple of weeks. No problem, it's the country. They'll just move me over to a tree over there. All right. Hopefully they won't put me in mental hospital. All right, let's give it a try. I was really serious about it. I seriously considered it. We see Rishabh following the same principle. Not that I'm an avatar or anything, that's for darn sure. But, I really seriously considered it. But I thought, that's a little wild. Let me consider other things. So basically I became like a jnani, trying to figure out how do we attain this higher state. But I had no books, no internet back then. You can't just look up how do I attain a higher state. You go to the library, libraries, America back then. You just had the classics, but not much anything else. So, at least that was my experience with limited endeavor. So, and trying to figure it out, I realized I got to get to this higher state that's independent of action, material action. But I never was successful because the mind and senses I couldn't control. So the senses would kick in and demand. So, and I didn't have a higher taste, as all this leads to the conclusion that one has to take to Krishna consciousness in order to have success, and we all know that from so many different Ravindaksha, you know that one? Okay. Basically, Brahma, I believe, is telling people, that they seem like they may be liberated, but actually they are not. And why? Because they don't have any affection for your lotus feet, Krishna. So Sabari Muni, without affection for the lotus feet of Krishna, saw the two fish doing their thing, and then he goes and marries 100 wives. How many?
50 daughters of Manda.
Okay. 50, sorry. 50 wives, and that's pretty much what happened to me. I didn't get married, thank God, but a certain type of pile of pustule and urine, jiva soul, and that kind of body walked by, and I was kind of gone for 2 years. And then after 2 years of being gone and getting disgusted with that, I got a little higher with knowledge. My roommate went to a Buddhist monastery, came back and was trying to kind of like train me up. And I wanted to continue this inquiry into the absolute truth and find a solution to the problems and miseries of life. I was very much inclined in that way. And so he taught me something that, let's go, was sunyavad, right? Voidist, annihilation of the self is the solution. And, you know, I thought that was a possible solution. I tried something like that earlier, but without any knowledge. And he had knowledge from all the great masters that apparently have attained some state. And if you read the books, at least back then, it made no sense to me whatsoever. And a little bit of background with the Buddhist structure is Buddha, according to H.D. Goswami, Buddha gave lectures. He didn't say there is no soul, or there is no God. When they asked him, is there soul, is there God, he didn't say anything. So his followers decided, okay, he's meaning that there is no God, no soul. So they kind of went with that. But we see that this voidist mentality, it only comprises of a very tiny fraction within the Buddhist ideas today. So we see that didn't really, and the vast majority are living entities wanting action. In other words, they have a structure to go to heaven, and this kind of thing today. So we can just imagine if I'm giving class and just sat here with a white background in the back, and that's it, and I didn't do anything or say anything, you know, maybe a new student would go, wow, this is pretty profound, for about 7 minutes, and then leave. And all the other people who've been around a while will just leave. Or if you open up the deity curtain and there's just gray walls and nothing in there, wow, and people just sitting there for hours. You know? No, well, people are bored, they won't want to come back. So people are more inclined for variety, for action, instead of this voidist mentality. But it did give me mantras to practice and meditation techniques and things like this, and I applied them. And within some of the mantras was the word Om. So I made some progress by chanting Om. And I did have some experiences, that's for sure, but it was impractical because I didn't know how to continue, because it would fade away and then I'm back in my regular consciousness. So, and then that leading to another one of these pile of earth, pus, and urine and stool, jiva soul covered with all that, walked by again, and I'm gone for about 2 more years until I'm finally disgusted. And then I leave, and finally I can ask the question, or I always could have, but I asked the question, what do I really want? And I said, I want to fall in love. You know, I went to school, did that for my parents, but what do I want? So I said, I want to fall in love. I didn't know what that meant, but I figured this love state is kind of the highest thing I could think of back then without really any knowledge, much at all, is the closest thing to what I'm looking for. And that led to me living alone without any influence, living a very simple life. And I started juicing. I knew I needed to purify this body and mind. Started fasting quite a bit and juicing. And I had an out-of-body experience. I'm actually in a dark universe. This universe is a dark place. There's no light here. You know, it's a prison. And I remember this verse in the Bible that said, knock and he will answer. So I just knocked on a piece of wood like this, and the phone rang immediately. And nobody calls me because I'm like a nobody and nobody even knows who I am. And it was my sister, and she said, she didn't even mean, hello, this is your, I think she said, this is your sister. And I just want to tell you now that God just told me that now is your time to devote your entire life to His service. Thank you, have a good day, click. What? But intuitively I knew that was the answer. The other, the concept of God really didn't really enter my mind so much before all that, other than what you're raised with as a in the Christian tradition, which my parents did push on me, which if you think about this Christian tradition, no offense, when you grow up and do something wrong in your household, do your parents kill you for it? This concept of if you make a mistake, you got to die. And they decide not to punish you. They take your brother who didn't do anything wrong and kill him. And now you're good. You're good to go. That's really whacked out. And not to mention the concept of going to hell forever. When I was 5 years old, they said that in church. My parents took me to church maybe a dozen times. I heard that, and I thought, I know this is nonsense. At least that part of it is. At least some of it's contaminated big time. How can God send somebody to hell forever? I mean, that's like the most cruel being in the universe. A controller that punishes you forever. No, you can't get unpunished. Anyways, enough of that. So then what happened when so then the concept of God, and somehow I knew intuitively that serving Krishna, God, I didn't know Krishna is God. But then the Sunday feast at the Hare Krishna temple was that night, and they doubled my rent at the Sikh ashram. So I went over there in great distress, and took, of course, a huge amount of prasadam, and stock up in calories for a couple days at least. And they said, well, you're always coming around here, why don't you just move in? So that's basically the process of going from, karma to jnana, to realizing jnana doesn't work. Now purification on some levels of giving the fruits of one's labor. And it also states in here, if you can't render service, then the concept of thinking that you're God is actually, a step. It's the last snare of Maya. It's not like it's 50 billion steps before the last snare. It's the last snare. So that was the Siddha Yoga thing. And then going into the concept of concepts of God, and then maxing that out to trying to be good to pure goodness, which, not that I'm purely situated in unalloyed goodness, that's Prabhupada, but the philosophical background and the right action of engaging only in unalloyed goodness activities. Maybe not totally purely doing that yet, but at least full-time engaging in that, being the ultimate good. So that's the progression. So as we pick apart this text and purport a little bit here, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. So if you just try to stop, like I try to, just stop action, it's okay, simple. You see people try this out. Okay, no problem. I'll just take this mind and just put it over there and not have to deal with it anymore. It doesn't work. You can't separate yourself like that. It doesn't work. You can't separate yourself like that. Not on the level of without purification. Without purification. It's just not possible. It's like taking sannyas without getting into purification. And adding to the story a little bit, I joined full-time engaged in Christian service in Iskcon, and without reading any of the literature, I had my ideas, and I kind of got bounced out of the temple in a weird way somehow, and was homeless trying to apply the teachings that I've learned, kind of like taking sannyas without going through 20 years in Iskcon properly. And that completely didn't work. In fact, that was a disturbance in society. I remember trying to distribute, they wouldn't give me any books, but they gave me, so I started distributing Bibles, and I had a guy chase after me full speed with a knife, really wanted to kill me, a gun to my head once. I'm sleeping in dumpsters because it's so cold at night in the desert in Phoenix, and the dumpster truck's gonna come any minute, and you don't get any sleep. Disturbance, I need food, somebody please give me, I didn't have the training. So, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So purport, the renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by the discharge of prescribed duties, which are laid down just to purify hearts of materialistic men. I once asked my guru, my dad's getting a little old, should I tell him to take sannyas? But he has no training in Krishna consciousness. And he said, no, that stage is just for people in-house, Iskcon, people that are applying themselves in Iskcon. It's definitely not for people outside, because what will they do? Can you imagine if every 70-year-old or 60-year-old person out there took sannyas on the street? What would they don't even know what to say. It would just be a complete crazy experience in the world. So there has to be training there. Prabhupada says, before he took sannyas, he's got a wife and kids. He went through the stages. Not that you have to take grihastha, but he said he got training. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life, sannyas. According to the empirical philosophers, simply by adopting sannyas, retiring from fruitive activities, one at once becomes as good as Narayan. And this is the Mayavadi conception. We see Lord Chaitanya, I believe he was in Vrindavan, and the people were saying, Krishna's come back to Vrindavan. If you go to the lake, you'll see Krishna's dancing on Kaliya. And of course it was just a fisherman catching the fish, and with a lamp there he had in the middle of the night, so it looked like that. So people were confused about that, and so Lord Chaitanya asked some person walking by that looked a little intelligent and said, what's going on here? Oh, people are imagining that Krishna is here, but I'm seeing you, and you are Krishna, you are Narayan. And it's like, how so? It's like, well, you're a sannyasi, so therefore you're Narayan. No. And Lord Chaitanya, Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. No, Jiva soul can never become Narayan. It's not possible. So this is a whole nother philosophically, messed up program, Mayavad philosophy. It doesn't add up philosophically. Neither does, the cheating religions philosophy. Neither does the Buddhist structure. And so religion without philosophy is sentiment, or sometimes fanaticism, and religion without philosophy or philosophy without religion is mental speculation. So, and we can assess all this from the character. Prabhupada mentions that what kind of character is behind these philosophers, and he said that you will find them worse than an ordinary man, the character. So this is like the proof. So this is like the proof of his working. How renounced are you? How snares of